There are a few things that I think anybody taking supplements should really know. The first is that supplements are not regulated by the FDA, which means that the dosing, the packaging, the ingredients, the facilities, how they're made, so many things aren't as standardized as with medications. There can be a lot of variability from one brand to the next, and in some cases, even one batch to the next. So it's important to look at things like consumerlabs.com to see which places consistently put what they say they're going to into the products, and if that is backed up by what the scientific literature that we have says is best for that supplement. The second thing is that supplements are not benign or harmless. They, just like medications, will have an impact on our bodies, and sometimes it can be quite profound. They can interact with other medications you're already taking, they can interact with certain medical conditions, they can have side effects, so it's always good to at least run them by a healthcare practitioner that you're working with to make sure that it's safe to take with what you're already taking, and also that it's going to probably do what you're hoping that it will do for you. The third thing to know is whatever the supplement or vitamin is bound to matters a lot. So these are magnesium glycinate capsules that I take to help with sleep. And these are magnesium hydroxide chews that my kids will take sometimes if they have constipation. So this will not cross the blood-brain barrier. It's not gonna help with sleep. It's gonna stay in the digestive tract and help them to, have more regular bowel movements if they're feeling backed up. Whereas this one will cross the blood-brain barrier, doesn't usually cause constipation, gets absorbed a little bit better, but won't help if I'm, backed up. The fourth thing to know is about dosing. You might read online or hear from your doctor that it would be good if you took a certain dose of a medication or supplement. Because the FDA doesn't regulate this, not all companies will actually put the exact amounts on there. So for example, we'll take a look again at my Pure Encapsulations magnesium glycinate. On the nutrition facts label, it'll say 120 milligrams of magnesium as magnesium glycinate, but it doesn't say whether or not that's the elemental amount of magnesium. I know that Pure Encapsulations always list things as the elemental amounts, not the total amounts. But if you're just reading this and you don't know that, then you might think that this is equivalent to another magnesium glycinate that lists 120 milligrams, but only has a really small amount of magnesium that's elemental in it. And for the effect, we need the elemental milligram to match the recommendation. This is my kids' magnesium glycinate gummies. And if you look at the front, it'll say magnesium glycinate gummies, 400 milligrams. And then if we flip around to the nutrition label, it will say elemental magnesium, 144 milligrams from 800 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. So if you're looking at a supplement like magnesium or iron that doesn't list explicitly how much elemental there is in that or not, I like to use on Amazon, if you go down to the reviews and questions and answers, there's a little search tab. I like to put in elemental, and usually other people have asked this question and that can give you an idea. And the internet's a magical place. You can usually find that information easily. The next thing ties into this as well. So for this, I will get 120 milligrams per capsule, which helps me in terms of knowing the dosing, but also comparing price from one item to another. For these, on the front, it'll say, 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, but in order to get that, you need to take 2 gummies. Each gummy is only gonna be about 72 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. Last but not least, there are certain vitamins, minerals, and adaptogenic herbs that are easier to get right for companies. And there are some that are harder to get right, or where there's more variability between one and another. And this is where looking at consumer labs or deep dive on, reputable Reddit responses and Google can be really important. One of the examples for something I use often in my practice is ashwagandha. This is from the Now brand, which is fairly reasonable in terms of expense, and many of them do rate high on the consumer lab report sites. It's 450 milligrams of the ashwagandha extract, but the withanolides is a minimum of 2.5% or 11 milligrams. When we make recommendations and when we look at the literature, it's the withanolide percentage and milligrams that seems to make the most impact. So you could get one supplement which has a very low percentage and you might not get the same results, or one that has a really high percentage, which might be either too potent or have a bad effect as well. So I always recommend checking with your healthcare practitioner to see what specifically they think would be helpful for you, and getting the elemental amount of the substance, the percent of a root extract with analytes, whatever metric it might be, the formulation, so what it's attached to, whether it's magnesium hydroxide or citrate, which will help you with constipation, or magnesium glycinate or threonate, which cross the blood-brain barrier more easily, and tend to be more helpful when it comes to anxiety and sleep, but not really all that helpful when it comes to constipation. This is not a sponsored video by any means, but there are certain companies that tend to do a better job at aligning their products with what the evidence shows is helpful and working with experts in the field and having really good quality control and score well consistently on third-party testing. The brand that I tend to default to the most and use most often for myself is Pure Encapsulations. I do have a provider discount code for 25% off that you can grab in the description below, but they're by no means the only company that is great. So if you have any questions, if you found this helpful, please comment below and let me know. And I hope to see you next time, and I hope you have an awesome week. Bye.
Serotonin, dopamine. The mind is more than can be seen. It's intricate, not just a mix of chemicals you need to fix.